Hello, we're back. We're talking about the Ukrainian crisis, the conflict. You and I, well, it would be good for us to understand it, to see on the world stage how exactly things are progressing. And for those who are still involved in the elections in the Philippines, let's give it a break. It's going to go for the next 15, 16 months anyway. But understanding how presidents should think, react, this is all about the world economy. It's called the world stage. And right now, right in front of that center stage is Vladimir Putin and, of course, Barack Obama. We have our guest. We have attorney Oleg Beleusenko. Did I say that right?
Beleusenko.
Beleusenko.
I admit it's not easy.
I know, it's different. Here they just say Beleusenko. It's easier,
That's
the English
correct.
pronunciation. Let's go right back. Take up where I had to rudely stop you. We've got a history between Ukraine and the Russians. They share a common history and a very deep history at that of 200-300 years, because you were referring to the 17th century. Now, my question then was, what is it with Ukraine that Russia wants to take back? Is it just the glory? And you explained, well, it's because of the situation of Russia today, being that they no longer have the power, the authority, other than, of course, the deep history of music, the arts, and whatnot. But they now only export their minerals. And in other words, they're no longer as rich as they used to be.
That's correct. And I think Putin and his government realized that the mineral resources prices, especially oil, would go down. And as a result, he needed to come up with something to present to his own people. And in the absence of effective economic reforms,
Ukraine is a price then?
In Russia, he wanted to be perceived by Russian people as a very successful in terms of foreign policy, you know, reestablishing the Russian glory, the empire. And when Ukrainian people, through first peaceful protests, and as you know, which turned violent, disagreed with this approach and forced the previous Ukrainian president out of power,
Yeah,
who ran away to Russia.
Yeah, who ran away to
Russia. People made a choice, and it was pro-European choice. Ukrainians share European values.
When you say pro-European, it's anti-Russian.
It's not necessarily anti-Russian.
Oh,
and if you speak to Ukrainians, there was at no point people were anti-Russian. Even today, it's a very strange paradox.
Yes.
Russians are invading Ukraine, but Ukrainians refer to Putin's Russia. They do not refer to Russian invaders. They refer to Putin's invaders. So
what's the difference?
Well, I think it's like Hitler's Germany. Germany, you know, made a huge contribution to the world culture. Nevertheless, it gave one of the worst tyrants and dictators in the history. So again, it was a paradox. I would say it's incorrect to refer to Germany. At the time during Nazi, I think, to emphasize that it was a Nazi Germany, not as a
Hitler's Germany.
Yeah, Hitler's Germany, who basically managed to effectively brainwash his people.
Well, Hitler was hit not for anything else. He was a terrific strategist, military strategist.
And propagandist.
Yeah, propagandist. He was very good at what he was doing. It was only his cruelty and his annihilation of the Jews, 6 million Jews. He's being pilloried by the world. Now, Putin, on the contrary, I'm trying to figure, what's that paradox? Why Putin's Russia and not Mother Russia?
Look, there is Dzerzhinsky, who is an ex-U.S. president's advisor and who is a leading expert on foreign affairs, has written a number of books. He was the one who actually correctly predicted the collapse of the Soviet Union, and he was correct on timing.
Yes.
And when he made that prediction, it was quite unrealistic. People didn't believe that Soviet Union would collapse that soon.
Because of the glory, the power, the authority.
He made this statement. One of his famous statements is that with Ukraine, Russia is an empire. Without Ukraine, it's not an empire.
What is it with Ukraine that Russia wants? Natural resources?
It's some sort, no, it's, again, Russia has more natural resources than any other country on the globe. It's not about natural resource. There are some issues. There are some issues, and I think I think I should point out
Please.
because Putin miscalculated. He was hoping that southeastern part of Ukraine, which
Would
is
want to be-
predominantly Russian,
Would want to go back.
would want to unite with Russia, or at least separate from the rest of Ukraine. And he was betting on it. And he was, I think, was pretty convinced about it.
But he was wrong.
And it was wrong. Only small part of eastern part of Ukraine.
Not even Crimea, the eastern part.
Southern. Crimea is the very southern tip, but again, it was occupied first by Russian forces. What's happening in Donetsk and Lugansk region, which is
Yes.
southeastern part. But he didn't manage to get control over the rest, the most important part of southeastern Ukraine. And I tell you why it is important. It's airspace and defense. We have high-tech defense industry in those parts. For your information, Ukraine is top 5 arms producer in the world.
Oh, I didn't.
China has the only aircraft carrier which was built actually by Ukraine.
Oh, it's
And
by Ukraine.
Yeah, and it
I
was.
thought it was an old Russian ship that they refurbished.
No, it was. It's a Ukrainian ship, and Ukraine has fourth generation aircraft engine. Ukraine has space program in cooperation with the
Maybe
US.
that's why it was referred to being part of the empire, and if you don't have that, you're not part of the empire. Maybe that was why that prediction was made.
I think it's probably economically, but also psychologically, because without Ukraine, the rest of the former republics, they are not comparable in terms of size and economic potential. And
Well,
also, just I'm sorry, just
Go ahead.
to finish the point. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, is the birthplace of Slavic people, including former Yugoslavia,
Right.
Poland, Czech and Slovak,
Lithuania.
Lithuania, it's separate,
Oh.
and Russians as well. So Kiev, that's where Slavic ethnicity started and Slavic state started, Kievskaya Rus, Kiev Rus. So again, for Putin to have this connection, because he also is playing on from a religion point of view, it's part of his propaganda. Kiev is an important ideological,
have it, yes.
it's ideological city and place, Ukraine.
Are the Ukrainians different in nature vis-a-vis the Russians? Are the Ukrainians hard-working? How come the space program, shipbuilding, armaments, why is it the industrialized portion or powers that Ukraine has, Russia don't seem to have?
Well, they have their own industry, but it's just happened that
Ukrainians are like the Germans of Europe.
Ukraine was the most western border of the Soviet Union. And during the Cold War,
Yes.
it was important to have this industrial potential, including defense, that would be close to the war
buyer,
action,
the war
to the border. And also, Donbas region, where the main fighting is taking place, it was it's a mining area, a lot of coal. So the heavy industry was built around this region, and the weather is not as harsh as in Russia because Ukrainian weather is mild. So there are a lot of explanations. Another point, Ukraine is the 5th largest grain producers in the world. It has almost 20% of black soil, which is the most fertile soil in the world, of world reserves.
Yes.
So it is an important, geopolitically, an important country.
But is Ukraine strong as a country to withhold Russia? As of now, it seems the Russian president, the new installed president, after the one that was taken out and ran away to Russia, is he strong enough together with Ukrainian people or the army to repel Russia? Because he seems to be asking the West and Europe to help him, to stand up against Putin.
Well, don't forget, I think we should remember that Russia has one of the largest armies in the world. So if you compare sizes of Ukrainian and Russian army, the firepower is overwhelming on Russian side. So without allies' help, and allies, I mean EU partners, and first of all and foremost, United States, of course Ukraine would be in a difficult position because it's already in a tough economic situation because of the previous government corruption. According to some numbers, statistics, about $400 billion were stolen from the budget in a
By
time
the
period
last
like a
president.
couple of years, yes. So basically the state is bankrupt. Without the EU or world community support, Ukraine today is not capable of withstanding. No matter how high
will lose
morale,
out,
how
yeah.
high morale is, and people are very determined, and it's
We see it on TV. They're fighting
well,
back.
it's unbelievable. It's unprecedented. I haven't witnessed such popular support for the Ukrainian army. People, including retired people, they contribute whatever they can. There is a famous story where a guy who is, together with his brother, is worth about $200 million. He sold his Rolls-Royce and has proceeds going to support Ukrainian army, and he actually enrolled in Ukrainian army. So the guy
There's no
doesn't
other-
have to, but
He's making the sacrifice.
for him that's an important, it doesn't matter how rich you are or how privileged you
So
are.
his nationalism can run deep, and he wants Ukraine to
Patriotism.
stand.
I would say it's patriotism.
Patriotism. There you go.
And people, you know, they, for the first time, they feel that they can have influence. They can influence the direction of the country.
Is it a democracy right now, Ukraine? It is, isn't it? Do the people have say, or is it a strong military rule?
I think we had probably
You grew up with freedom. Obviously, you're educated, you're able to travel.
today we have probably the most liberal government and parliament. We had elections this year, and there is no question that the elections were free. So, and overwhelmingly...
Not the one in Crimea. Everyone's questioning that one.
Well, you know, as I said, before I pointed out to, you know, the referendum in Scotland. If people in Crimea, if we had free referendum and people in Crimea decided to join Russia, I don't think, in accordance with the Ukrainian laws, I don't think Ukrainians would strongly object, because after all, Ukrainians historically are very peaceful people. But that's not how it was conducted. It was basically on Russian arms that referendum
we
was
saw that.
conducted. So what I wanted to say that the Ukrainian parliament is overwhelmingly today pro-European. So Ukraine made a choice. Ukraine is going to Europe. And Putin, thanks to Putin, and I think it's a paradox, but it's probably an average Ukrainian must be grateful to Putin that due to his action, Ukraine, we never had such unification within and such determination within Ukraine to support democracy and European values.
Okay, Oleg, we're going to have to take another break. Ladies and gentlemen, there you are. In conflict, in chaos, many times there can be opportunity. How else can you build a patriotism, a nationalism, a strong sense of being part of your country? Obviously, it is in times of war, times of conflict, when you're about to lose what you take for granted, then you stand up and rise to the occasion. Stay with us, and we have one more concluding episode at this point. I would like to bring up the relationship, the importance, the significance of Ukraine, and how that situation will affect the rest of the world. Stay with us.